Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. In this one, we're going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to talk to you about my experience at a local event called HackMemphis, which is a hackathon here in Memphis that just took place over this past weekend. And I just want to walk you guys through what I built, the technologies that I used, just so you can kind of get a feel of what a development process is for me on something over the course of a couple of days. So first, to tell you a little bit about HackMemphis, or actually let's start with what a hackathon is in general. And this was a term that really intimidated me in college. We had hackathons in Nashville that I was kind of scared to go to, and actually never went to one because hackathon to me implied like you're actually like hacking, like trying to break into something. But hacking is really just building something. And a hackathon is an event where people would get together usually for a weekend, so a Friday night, a Saturday, and a Sunday. And you form a team, you come up with an idea of something you want to solve, and you build it out as far as you can. And some of the hackathons are pretty competitive. People travel from all over the country or the world, and they compete for prizes and stuff like that. HackMemphis is a lot more low-key. It's pretty laid back. It's again over the course of a couple of different days. Food is provided, which is pretty sweet. And you kind of hang out and you build, and you can build whatever you want. So for me, going into this event, I knew that I wanted to do something with React. So I wanted to practice building a React application, because React is still something that's pretty new to me. And I didn't really have a firm idea of what I wanted to do until talking to my wife. She is a soccer coach, coaches 2 soccer teams, and on her soccer teams, they have to play each of their players 50%. So I see her and her assistant coach taking a lot of time trying to figure out which players need to be subbed, which players need to come out, which players need to go in to kind of meet that 50% mark for each player. So I kind of came up with the idea of let's build something that can track time for players in a sporting event. So that's the idea that I went into this hackathon with, and I'm going to walk you through just basically the different phases from sketching out on a piece of paper to design, to actually building it and then deploying it as well. So we're going to walk through all of those steps. So I'm going to start with something that might shock you a little bit, or it might not. I'm not really sure what it's going to look like to you guys. If I can bring this thing over here. There we go. So this is my original sketch of the application. And what I did, I do this for all the little sample things that I work on to start with, or most of them. And I'll just kind of sketch out the things that need to be done. Maybe a couple of different like potential layouts here. Again, this is not very intense, so you can do this obviously on your own. But let's see. So I've got some notes in here. I need to be able to create a team, create a roster, start a game with a timer, pause and stop and complete the game, associate players as playing or being on the bench. So you need to know which players are playing at a given time. A feature that I didn't actually get to would be to change colors based on the need to play. So if they're less than 50%, they might be red. If they're greater than 50%, they might be green, something like that. To sort players by minutes played. Enter a target percentage. So if I want everybody needs to play at least 25%, I could enter that percentage, for example. Do some historical data, need to be able to substitute players, and then things here that I want to see about a player. So obviously here went through a couple of different sketches. Again, these are not super intense, so don't think that you have to have everything figured out by the time you get started working on a project. But you can see here I've got an idea of like for each player, I want to see how many minutes they played and then maybe their name here. And that's kind of the basic design that I went with. So on the team screen, or actually let's see, at the home screen, you'd have a add new team, and I'm not actually sure this is actually the teams screen. So this is where I would add a team, and then when I view that team, I would come over here and I could see the players on that team. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what this initial sketch was for me. And I did this in maybe an hour on that Friday night, just kind of or actually maybe 30 minutes of just kind of sitting around and thinking about what I wanted to do. So from there, I went on to design, and I used an application called Sketch to do the design. Sketch is one of the most popular design tools out there for designers, people that are doing web, people that are doing mobile web, things like that. This is super, super useful. If you guys are Sketch users, you'll probably recognize that I haven't organized my content over here very well. This was just kind of get stuff on the screen as quick as possible to kind of get an idea of what the layout and the look and feel would be. And I'm pretty happy with it. I think that this took maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to just kind of sketch this out and think through all the different things that I needed to do. So here I've got the home screen where I can look at teams and I can start a game. If I click on my teams, it will take me to a list of teams that I have and allow me to create, I can zoom in here for you guys, allow me to create a new team with this form and then view my different teams and then delete them if I needed to here. As I click on a team, it'll take me to this page where I'll see the team name. I'll see I can add a player, and then it says add players to your roster. So as I add players, this is what it will look like, and then I can remove players with the minus, the same format that the teams are shown here. So one of the things that you're starting to see here is that there's a lot of overlap between this whole box and this whole box, and I'll talk about how that kind of came into React components in a second. So then the next piece is the time tracking, the actual starting of the game. So in the game screen, you would choose a team. You would start out with everyone on your bench. You would do a plus icon to move people from your bench to your starters. And then you start a game and you'd see the time up here. And then you would see minutes associated with each player. And then let's see. So this is after pausing, you'll see a resume game button and then an end game. And then when you're in game, you just kind of go back to this screen and you're kind of back to your default. So this is what the sketch was. This is the design. This is what I wanted to build. And you can see a couple of things I pulled in here from reference. I always go to Pinterest. If you guys are interested in finding designs for stuff, just check out Pinterest and you can always find some really good stuff. So let's actually come back over to the application and we'll take a look at what it looks like. So pretty much what you saw in the design, you can view teams, say, and this form is a little bit off, so I need to fix that. I say, hey, here is my new team. I can view my teams here, so I can delete this HackMemphis one, and I can click on new team, and I can add a player and say, James is a new player, and Jessica, my wife, is a player, and I could remove players and add them back again as well. So that's how I create a team. Then back in the start game, I would select a team. So I'll select my new team, and then I'll add James as a starter because James is the best. I'll start the game. This is counting seconds pretty quickly just for demo purposes. But you'll see after it gets up to 1 minute, then I've got a minute. And if I add my wife, then at the next minute, she'll get a minute. And if I take myself to the bench, the next minute, she'll get a minute, and I won't here in a second. All right. Then I'll pause, I could resume, and then I could end game, which will just kind of reset. So all in all, and I'm going to walk you guys through the React part of this here in a second, but all in all, I'm super happy with how this turned out. It does pretty much exactly what I wanted it to. So let's go ahead and break this down a little bit in React. And I haven't done a lot of content on React yet, but plan on there being more and more as I get deeper into it. But let's start with something like the, let's see, the router maybe. No, I think I actually didn't use the router. Let's look at the app.js. And so one of the things you'll see is the React router. So this is from React Router DOM. And you basically wrap your application in the browser router, and then you define which paths go with which components. And this is, the concept is the same on almost any framework that you would use. It's associating a path with a component. It's the same thing in Angular, but in a little different form, and I assume it's the same kind of thing in Vue as well. So I'm saying the just slash is going to go to the home component, and we can look at what that is. So on the home component, we just have those two buttons, the My Teams button and the Start Game button. And I created a component for the button so that I could style a button once and basically move styling from using classes in CSS to just using the components. So this is my button component, and I can pass in a class string if I need to add an additional class. I can pass in a click handler so I can handle the click, and then the button text I can handle as well. So I don't know what I changed, so I won't save that. So this button here says when you get a click, just go ahead and do a push. So navigate to the teams page and the game page, and then the text that you want to be displayed. So that's the home screen. It's pretty simple. Then in my app, I've got the teams component, so I can open up teams.js. And on teams, I have the add team form, and that's just the simple thing here to add a team. So that form, or actually no, sorry, back in this guy, that add team form. And then, sorry, I'm kind of moving around a lot. And then inside of here, basically I want to loop through each of my teams, and I want to display a card. So I created a card component that displays the information about that team, which right now is just the team name. So this card component, and I'm going to switch around. Hopefully you guys aren't getting dizzy. The card component, if you look, is this same thing is the same as this, and the same as this one, these down here as well. So this card component, I created like a little badge section here, so I could pass in badge text. I could pass in the regular title text, and I could pass in a button text and a button handler text to be able to reuse this card component wherever I wanted, which actually I was pretty proud of. I thought that turned out really good. So then on the majority of the logic is actually in the, let's see, the game.js. And this is where, to keep track of state, I need to know who's on the bench, who my starters or players are. I need to know which team I'm working with. I need to know what state the game is in. So is it started? Is it stopped? Is it paused? I need to know a start timestamp. I'm not using this yet, and I'll tell you, or I might get into why that's there or not. Then I have the current seconds and current minutes. So as I start that timer, I can keep track of how many seconds have gone by. And then as I increment those, when it gets to 60, I carry over and then increment the minutes. And then the time interval is, let's see, do we use that one? Yeah, down here. Oh, so time interval is actually the set interval. So in JavaScript, you get a reference to the set interval. And I needed to do that so that when I started the game, I would set this call set interval. And right now it's every 100 milliseconds. But if I paused it, I needed a way to be able to cancel this timer. So if you look down in pause game, I do a clear interval on the interval that I saved in my state, so I could do that. And then in my pause, resume, and play, I'm just setting the game states to the appropriate states. And in game, I'm basically resetting things to minutes played of 0 for each player. So starters and bench, I've got a list of players, and then I just set their minutes back to 0. Pretty straightforward. And then set the state back to stopped, current seconds and minutes, just reset the timer, and then reset the bench and starters. So the bench and start player is just a way to move one player from bench to starter, or to player, I guess. And this just works with updating the state of both the starters and the bench. So the starters, if I'm going to bench one, I would take that guy out of that array using splice, and then I would push in a new player, and then just set the state for both, including both of those. And then same thing down here, but the opposite. So I would take out the player from bench and then push them onto starters, and that allows to switch between the two. So one of the most important things here, and I don't want this video to get too long, so I'm getting kind of close here, is that I'm using Firebase. Actually, I'll pull up Firebase. If you guys are in a hackathon scenario especially, or just really in any scenario where you're looking for a backend to take care of data for you, Firebase is one of the most popular ways to get started and have just kind of the backend kind of ready to go for you. So I use Firebase. I've used this in a couple of really projects that I've worked through in courses that I've taken. And if I look at my database, you can basically see in here my real-time database, I think, yeah, real-time database. You can see the data that I've got stored. Well, maybe not. There it is. Okay. So you can see I've got a list of teams, and then each team, it has its ID, and then it has a name, and then it has a list of players. Each player has an ID. You can see those names. So this is where my data actually lives. So I used Firebase, and then I used Rebase. Sorry, I'm jumping around here. Sorry. I used Rebase to, let's see, Rebase and NPM. So Rebase allows you to connect the state of a component to the database in Firebase. And if you update your state, it basically updates your database in real time, which is super cool and makes working with your database super, super easy. So if you guys are interested in something like that, you'll need the Firebase package, and then you'll need the Rebase package to kind of keep this stuff in sync. And then I also used the React Context API to share my state between different components. And if you've done component development before, you kind of know the struggle here of how do you pass state between components, especially when you have many nested components, and they do what you call prop drilling, which is where you send down props to children, to their children, to their children, versus with the React Context API, you can have kind of every component can have access to the same pieces of data. So when I bring down the list of teams from Firebase, I sync them in my state for my app component, and then using the Context API, my other components can get access to that state and show the list of teams and the players and start a game and all that kind of stuff. So I was pretty happy with this. I had used, again, some of that stuff in courses that I'd done, but this is the first time, this is the biggest React project that I've taken on just kind of by myself, free for all, and went through and just kind of reiterated a lot of the things that I'd learned in the past and was super happy with it. And this is the beauty of a hackathon, is you're kind of surrounded by people who are doing similar stuff or different enough things, but everyone's just kind of hacking and building and teaching and sharing. And that's really the most important part is the conversations that happen in hackathons and the things that you kind of absorb just from being around people. So one of the things that I did absorb was working with Netlify for hosting. And actually, let's go to Netlify. I always do this wrong. Netlify. So I hear, if you guys listen to the Syntax podcast with Wes Boss and Scott Talinsky, Netlify is a sponsor, and they rave about Netlify. And I've really been eager to have a chance or to have a reason to use it. And a guy, one of my friends at the event said, hey, why don't you check out Netlify? That's what he uses. And this is just for hosting my app. It does a ton of different things. So it can do kind of like a full backend for you as well, giving you access to like AWS Lambda functions, and it can handle form submits for you and really cool stuff. So there's lots of stuff in there, but I'm basically just using the ability to host my site. So what I did was I said I wanted to create a site. I connected it to my GitHub repository. So on my GitHub, James Quick, it's time-track. If you guys want to check that out, if you guys want to do a pull request and add some features or anything like that, please do. I'd be happy to have you work on it. But I basically connected this to my GitHub account. You can see it deploys from GitHub. And then it allows you to define one command that you can run when it pulls that latest code from GitHub. And I think, does it show what that is in here? Site settings, maybe. Okay, I'll have to go find that later. But basically all I did was deploy the React. It gets the React code from GitHub, and then I was able to tell it, just go ahead and do a build and then serve from the dist folder. So when you do an npm build with React, your finalized build assets go into the dist folder, and then the dist folder basically becomes your public directory in Netlify to serve it. So with that, I can actually come out to this free URL, which is why it's this weird thing here. And I can see time track. So I can look at teams. It's the same teams we had before. I could start a game by choosing a team and doing start here. And I get the exact same functionality, which is super cool. And I kid you not, it took probably 4 total minutes to sign up for my Netlify account, create a web app, connect it to GitHub, and have it pull and be deployed. I mean, it was super seamless, and I'm really excited to look more into Netlify and do more of this stuff. So overall, I can't encourage you guys enough, especially if you're learning, to go and check out a hackathon. Go and just be ready to absorb, check out what's going on, learn things that are going on around you, and just dig in and practice. Because for me, I've done different things with React, taken courses, and I understand the concepts and things, but it's different when you actually have to build it out yourself and no one's really guiding you along the way. So I definitely spent like hours trying to figure out some stuff that I just kind of missed. It a little bit tricky, or maybe I didn't fully understand. But coming out of this, I have an application that I'm proud of. I've got an experience that I really enjoyed. I did some learning. I got to share with other people as well. And hackathons are just an amazing experience. You guys should check it out. So I hope this kind of resonated with you. If you're just kind of interested in the workflow, the things that go through my mind when I work on a project, one of these sample projects, this is it. From just writing in a notebook to getting a design in Sketch, which I'm trying to get better at, is the actual design process. and then building it out in React in this case, and then deploying to Netlify. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and you can check out my newsletter on learnbuildteach.com to get updates on the latest content as it comes out. Thanks for watching.